Hello, welcome everybody. This is the webinar for Why Marketers Need a Product Information Solution, presented by Bluebolt and inRiver. We're going to go through a couple things today, so hopefully we'll get a good session. Let's start with some basics of housekeeping stuff. Ask questions at any time. We'll come back around at the end, so just pop them in there and I'll make sure to catalog them and ask the questions at the end of the session. We are recording this, and the recording and the slides will be available within 24 to 48 hours, and everyone will get emailed even if they didn't attend this session. So we'll make sure everybody gets a copy. My name is Chris Reisner. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at Bluebolt, and I'll be sort of guiding us through here. And David Sultan, we're excited to have him with us. He's the Director of Sales Engineering at inRiver, and he will be providing the bulk of the presentation here. We'll go through that here in 2 seconds. So from an agenda perspective, we're first going to go over some statistics and some research and some supporting documentation. We'll give a description of the problem and why PIM is needed, and then where PIM positions itself. Then the next step is we'll go through where future of PIM is going, what it's up to and where it's going in the future. And then we'll give a brief demo. inRiver will provide a demo of its product, and we'll go through some questions and answers. So there's 3 things that we really view product information management solutions benefiting. The first one is customer experience. And you know, if you're a marketer and you're not laser focused on improving the customer experience, you're probably already losing. And 87% of shoppers stated by Forrester that they have left a B2B site to conduct research around a product, usually because a product description or information is not meeting their needs. So essentially that means they're leaving your site if you don't have the right information available to them at the time that they're looking for it, and they're going to go somewhere else to look for it, and you may lose them in the process. 30% of data in catalogs have errors. That's just a dismal statistic, if you ask me, according to AMR research. Up to 30% of typical product data master files consist of duplicate or erroneous information as well. And really that just means with so many different places to put content and data and images for product in different systems, they're all going to get out of sync at some point in time. And all that comes back to making sure you have a really good customer experience so that somebody isn't confused. The second thing we see a PIM helping with is cost reduction. Without a PIM in place, it takes an average of 4 weeks to roll out a new product. Obviously, speeding that up not only improves you know, the efficiency within the marketing department, but also makes the whole process just faster and makes you more nimble in general. You can accomplish more and get things done faster. 60% of invoices have errors, and each invoice costs up to $400 to reconcile. That's a crazy amount of invoice errors, and we've probably all seen them in our lifetimes many times before, where just information is just inaccurate, and we need to do a better job. Companies that embark on a B2B project without a PIM will waste an additional 12% each year. There's a whole bunch of factors for this, and hopefully we'll go through a bunch of those in the future. But David's going to cover a whole bunch of details around how a PIM helps in this particular area as well. And the final thing is to increase revenue. So if you think about it, if you have the right information in the hands of the salespeople, from an integration perspective in their CRM, feeding the right product information, they can do cross-sells and upsells properly, and product recommendations can help to 10 to 30% of revenue, according to Forrester. On the back end, the customer service people having that information can provide the same thing. So at the time that they're talking to somebody about some issues, they can be doing upsells and cross-sells if they have the right information available to them as well. And poorly maintained and synchronized product information can cause companies to lose 3.5% of sales every year. There are a whole bunch of areas around that could cause decrease in revenue, and lost opportunity is really where the main area is. So those 3 things, improving customer experience, reducing costs and increasing revenue is where product information management really sings. And we're going to let David here discuss how we can make sure that that happens. So take it away, David.
Hey, Chris.
Yep, just handed you the control. Sorry about that.
Great. All right, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Okay, what I'd like to do is first of all, you're going to get about approximately 15 minutes of a few slides kind of introducing what we're going to be demoing around the PIM, and then I'll go right into a demo. But what I'd like to do is really start with the slide. It really gives you an overview of how we got to what we call the age of information today. It kind of started with what we call the age of manufacturing. It really started around 1900 to 1960, where we talked about Henry Ford, the factory buildup, more automation and efficiencies, and really just around mass production. Then we moved to what we call the age of distribution, really around the 1960s to 1990s, and it's really more about right age of distribution, which is supply chain management, focusing on distribution and operation management. Then we kind of shifted toward the age of information, somewhere around the 1990s through the 2010, also known as the kind of computer age. And there was a shift from traditional industrial period to what we call a digital world, knowledge base, high tech, operation efficiencies, and everything pretty much around computers and internet. And then we're today at what we call the age of information, the age of the customer, and really that's a lot of choices for consumers. They're much more empowered customers surrounded by choices, and basically information is everywhere. So really the challenge is the increased complexity for the business. How do they deal with more markets, more products, and the exploding channels? And the key from a PIM's perspective is how do you really attract, convert customers during this particular age of a customer? So I'll take you through what we call the kind of some critical success factors. First of all, we're trying to make sure that we kind of reduce the time to market by making the product management process much more efficient. We want to make sure that we improve the customer's experience really around searching for data, making it easier for them to make sure the data is accurate, relevant, and obviously providing them high quality of not only data, but the digital assets that goes with it. And obviously is the better personalization and site navigation as they come to visit your websites. We also want to make sure that we kind of deals with returns. So by giving the customers the correct data, you reduce the returns that comes to you. And obviously another one is to ensure product consistency across all your channels. And finally, really reducing the cost that deals with operation inefficiency. Now, when we're talking about the channels, really the number of touch points, or if some folks refer to as channels, really exploded over the years. So we're really looking at starting from a brick and mortar traditional stores like ways to sell to consumers, went to print catalogs, kind of move on to websites, e-commerce, mobile, social, and really now we're dealing with various marketplaces like big box retailers. So selling through Home Depot is much different than selling maybe through Walmart and your own website. There's so many touch points to deal with. So we really just need to be prepared. The customers need to be prepared to kind of deal with that, or the vendor. These are some interesting statistics. I know we're throwing at you a lot of numbers, but I think this is kind of important because it deals with how offline kind of influence, how online kind of influence your online purchases. So if you take a look really at the dark blue here at the top, it really shows you the steady offline sale over the years. And if you look at the bottom here, you'll see really the light blue is the online sales. They're obviously increasing over the year. But what's critical about this particular statistics is this, what we refer to as the web influence of offline sales. So in 2015, for example, you're talking about 54% of all your offline sales were really influenced by the web traffic. So pretty much when anybody comes to your website, they're looking for them eventually end up in your store. That's really what it's saying. As a typical example, let's just take furniture shopping, for example. How many times have you gone online, look for things, review products, and then finally went to a local store and purchased a product? From a personal point of view, I kind of recently, we're redoing our bathroom, so we're looking for sink vanities, and I constantly find myself going online, looking for things, then going back to the store to try to see the touch, to feel it. So that's still needed in today's world. Now, the other interesting thing is you try to figure out, okay, so what do people actually do when they go online? What are they looking for? So the number one thing is 39% of it is really around people just looking for product information, whether it's price, color, any facts about the product to really educate themselves. The other one is 31%, you're talking about they're going to and ready to buy. And the 17% is really just to learn more about the product offering. But at the end of the day, when you look at overall, you're talking about 66% of all consumers just visit manufacturer websites just involved about learning about the product. So it's important that you have all your data correct. So good data, relevant data, and consistent data will make the purchasing a lot better for your consumers. And one of the key things that we're kind of learning from our kind of like being in the field a bit is product content is becoming a priority. What it means is we noticed that a lot of our customers kind of go out there and they have this web strategy and digitalization revamp of digital platform, and they sort of started a web. So they're redoing the website, and what they find is that their product data is incorrect or very hard to manage. So they end up coming back to us and say, okay, we now need a PIM, but they've already started the project. So now this is becoming a priority. The other thing that we see is that PIM, we call it like PIM makes product comes to life. What that means is because you have a PIM, you can enrich your product faster, quicker, and make it look great on your website or whatever channel you're dealing with. And finally, things that we also tell our customers a lot is really about avoiding over-engineering. It's great that you want to do all those things, but you want to make sure that you keep things simple, do it in phases, and don't just turn the lights on and off and just go from one system to another. Just kind of phase approach to your implementation. Now, another thing that we want to kind of look at is how is PIM really different than an ERP or any other source of your data? So if you look here on the right side, this is typically what you'll find in an ERP system. Very technical data, very things really around supply chain rather than about product or marketing. Thing on the left you'll see in here, this is what you'll typically find in a PIM. So PIM really cares more about the visual, not just the technicality about the product and to do with supply chains, but really around the visual of the product. And really customers, they want to buy product based on relevant information, but also it needs to be appealing. So you want to have digital assets involved with it, the ability to kind of compare things together, but at the end of the day, it needs to be visual. Now, we see this, when we show this slide to our customers, I would say that 9 out of 10, they always come back and say, this is what our life looks like. We call it the content spaghetti, spreadsheet or spreadsheet hell, some people refer to it. It's basically most of our customers we talk to say this is their life. So information is everywhere, inconsistent, spreadsheets are flying around the organization. It's very, very cumbersome and difficult to manage. So what we try to do is kind of help our customers. And what you see here, this particular slide kind of talks a little about what we call the, you still need the data for product information. So still is necessary to have a database, centralized database. But it's no longer sufficient to really deal with the age of information or the age of the customer. What I mean by that is we don't want to just have just another database for the sake of having a centralized database. You want to make it a bit more than that. And that's where really PIM comes into the picture. So for example, you want to tie in your ERP information, maybe your PLM data. You allow your marketing to come to the same place to enrich the data. You'll be able to allow your customers to be able to go and map products or channels. So that way they can be nimble to take a product to the market faster. And obviously making the syndication process a lot easier. So a PIM really allows you to facilitate a faster time to market. Now, before I get to how kind of inRiver fits into the picture in more details, that is a good slide to show you all the ecosystem around a PIM in general. So if you look in here on the left side, you'll have all the activities really around designing and planning for a product. You know, whether it's in a PLM or whatever other system you have, it's sort of fed into an ERP system or a PLM system. And then that kind of stays where it is, but then that information gets kind of brought into inRiver or to a PIM system in here where the enrichment starting can begin. So you have product description, images, the enrichment process. All the data around making your product, tell your product story is done in here in the PIM. And obviously any activities around your products, so whether you're launching new products, having some activities or campaign around it, or sort of like in a calendar type view, allows you to deal with your products, but in a more visual way. And finally, when your products are really ready to go to the channels, you have a very methodical way to get your product kind of pushed to your channels, and every product should look different based on where you're sending it to. Now, having said all of that, what inRiver provides you is really a solid and very flexible PIM. We call it the future state of product information. And the reason we call it the future state is really to show you that you can go from a spreadsheet complexity and into a more structured environment. So inRiver provides you 4 core applications called supply, enrich, plan and release, and publish. The supply side really allows us to bring information from any source. So whether you need to bring stuff from your ERP so we can create your SKUs, whether you need your product data from your PLM system, whether you want to deal it just from a spreadsheet perspective or any other third-party system, we can bring that data right into inRiver and start the enrichment process. Then notification can fire it up, things can move around the organization, and then the marketing people can come in and start enriching the product, telling the story, adding the romance copy, adding digital assets, relating product to product, having to cross-sell the upsell. So all the complexity that typically today is done on a website is now done in the PIM to make things easier when a person does go to your website. So it starts from the supply, go through the enrichment process, and then we have a step called the plan and release. That is really where you take a product and you can map it to any one of your channels. So maybe a product that ends up on your print and a product that ends up on your e-com site or a product that ends up on your mobile may look a little different depending of your audience. So you have a good way to control all that stuff within inRiver. And the final step of the process is obviously the physical pushing of the data, or the product data and the images. And we have obviously connected to various e-com system and website, web content management. We can talk about that separately. But at the end of the day, we do provide a way to get data in, enriching the data, mapping it to a channel, and then physically pushing it out. Now, we're getting closer toward the demo, and I got a few more slides here. That one just talks about what we call harmony in workflow, or working in parallel. So throughout the life cycle of a product, whether it's coming through the supply process, the enrichment process, or the planning and releasing of the product, there are a lot of things that can be there to facilitate really a better workflow. So we don't have the concept within inRiver of a structured workflow where person A does something, person B does something different. It's really around rules that you set up in the system, and then people, based on their job, will take action based on notifications and tasks. What I mean by that is a person logs into inRiver, they see their portal, and then they'll get notified. Here's some notification about missing images or new products coming in or new SKUs coming in, and then they can take action. You may want to even have tasks associated with them that when they click on it, they actually have to fulfill a tasks that are assigned to them. And finally, you can also put in some completeness rule around your channels as an example. Maybe something that's ready for the web and ready for the print or ready for Amazon is completely different. So for print, you may need a high resolution file, whereas for web, you may just maybe want to make sure you have some image and a description. It's just as an example. So we help in here just facilitate a good workflow around your organization. Now, having all of that needs something behind it, and what we have is called a product-centric marketing model or data model. And really what it's saying is that every customer has their own product and product challenges. So we give you a marketing model that allows you to deal with that. So in inRiver, for example, you can create any marketing model you would like. And here's an example of a product. In this case, maybe a drill that contains multiple variants, could be by size, could be by capacity, battery life, whatever that may be. So you can have a product with variant. That product may also be part of a package, so you may be sending things in kits or bundles. You may want to have cross-sell, upsell, things like that, or accessories, spare parts. So you can see the complexity can very easily build up, and that's where we have the marketing model to make things a bit easier to manage. And that really is from an implementation point of view, so you have this all in place. From an implementation point of view, that is a typical kind of life of a project, if you may, with our partners. So you normally would have a kickoff where you're talking about the scope of the project, workshop, planning sessions. Then you go through the analysis phase in here where you really start building up your model, your attributes, your all the taxonomy, your categories, and your workflows and your rules. So you analyze what it is you needed, and then you have a step where you actually install and do all the configurations. And finally, traditionally, as normally you'll have, is testing, QA, and deployment. That's really what a typical implementation kind of looks like in inRiver. So I know I threw a lot of things at you. Hopefully you were able to digest it. And have any questions, you can reach out to me later to us. What I'm about to do is take you through a live demo. Should take approximately anywhere from 15 to 20 to 30 minutes. You know, we'll see how things move, and then obviously we'll open it up for some Q&A. So let me start by first of all saying in this particular demo, I'm using just a furniture company as an example. We have multiple demo environments depending on who we deal with, if it's a fashions or kind of more do-it-yourself type products. I just picked furniture as just for today, but if you want to see other type of products, by all means, let us know and we can share that with you as well. This particular page, as you can see here, is actually, it's a live system. It's called the portal, inRiver portal. It's the login page, and it's every user based on their credential will see different things based on their rights, permission, and things like that. The first thing you'll notice about the portal is that it's kind of color coded to make things easier. So the red area you see here, these are what we call the inRiver core apps. So if you remember a couple of slides ago, I had one that shows supply, enrich, plan, release, and publish, the 4 core apps. They're right here. You can click on each one of them and start your basically working with the system. And I'll go through them in 1 minute. But we also have something else called what we call functional apps or additional apps. Things like a planner, where you can have things really around managing your, really like maybe it's a product launch or marketing events, really around your products. You can have a calendar view of that, so giving a time dimension to your product. We also have a content store that allows you to share your product and product data. So it's basically a self-service. So once you've done and your products are ready to go to your markets, let's say you want to share it with your dealer distributor network, you have a place for them to go search for content and they'll be able to download it on their own self-service. And I'll actually show that today. I will not show supply and onboarding others, all the other ones, just because there's no time for everything. But supplier onboarding does allow organization to be able to upload a spreadsheet and digital assets directly into the PIM, and it will go through an enrichment process as well. And we also offer what we call print, and print is really around the Adobe InDesign. So if you do have the need to build physical catalogs, we also have a InDesign plugin to work with that, and we can do a separate demo for that if that's needed. So let's focus really around the 4 core apps, and I'll really spend most of my time on the Enrich app, which is where everything happens. On the supply side, I'll kind of quickly click on it and kind of show you what's there. It's typically something that's been set up by IT. It's a one-time kind of job. You can monitor and all of that, but at the end of the day, you define your inbound connectors. Where's my data coming from? Where are my SKUs and products? And typically, they kind of usually start somewhere in your ERP system. So whether I'm talking to a PLM, an ERP, SAP, any of those, you build up a connector and data will start flowing into inRiver for the enrichment process. From the supply, we go to the enrichment process, and let's spend a little bit of time here looking at what products, how a product looks like, and what's the life cycle of a product. So this is kind of the homepage of the enrich. So again, depending on who you are, it can look a little different. A couple of things I want to highlight for you. First of all is this notification page. I don't know if you remember, but I had it in one of the other parallel kind of workflow slide. A user logs in and it's going to tell them a few very critical information. As an example, you can be notified that you're missing images. And if I have more than 20 images, I want to be notified that maybe there's something needs to happen. People are not doing their job and you need to call somebody or task somebody to start uploading digital assets. You may want to go ahead and have a thing that shows all the approved new product or all the new products that just came in. And these are just notifications. You can get them via email or you can just notify it from here. The other thing you may want to know is not only just get notified, but be tasks upon it. So if there are, let's say, new products, well, that's great that there are new products, so what do you want to do about it? Well, maybe you send a task to somebody in the product team to go ahead and start setting up categories, putting some text around it, etc. So you have kind of full control of stuff coming in and then who needs to do what to address it. The other thing that we make easier is really what we call work areas. So this is where you can come in here, and depending on who you are, you'll have a work area for assortment. You can look at, for example, dealing with furniture. You can organize things by types, bedroom, bathrooms, outdoor kitchens. And this is how you as a product manager are used to kind of seeing things. You can create your own folders. You can have folders that are used by the entire company, and etc. And you can also, obviously, you can search. So not just have it organized in a work area. I can type in any keyword in here and be able to kind of in here find any data that I want, or I can go to what we call in a more advanced search, where I can actually search for specific data in the system. Now we also have something called star entities in here. So depending on who you are, you can set up your own kind of like favorites, if you may. If I'm a product manager for a specific product type or maybe a bit of brand, I can have my own star entities, so I don't have to search for things or look for them. They just appear for me to them because I work for them on a day-to-day basis. Now, what I'm about to do, so this is just a landing page. What I'm about to do is kind of take you through a life of a product and what people can do with a product. What does it look like in inRiver? Few things I'd like to kind of also highlight before I jump into the specific product itself. One thing is you'll see that there are two buttons here called Preview and PDF. The preview will allow you to see what this product is going to look like online. So if I actually click on it and say, well, this is a template for a website, I can now see physically what this product is going to look like online, depending on your channel that you're selling it at. So it's part of a kind of a cool and a cool feature. But I can do the same thing for PDF. So if you want to see what it's going to look like on, a catalog or something like that, you can build different templates for PDFs. Now, one of the very important things is what we call the completeness. You can see when I hover over this completeness rule, it will tell me that it is 90% complete. Well, it means that this product is not ready to go to the market. Why is it not ready? Well, I've set up some rules. So I said that in order for this particular product to make it to, for example, my website, I need to have a description. I need to have at least one category. I need to have an image. But very important, I don't want to set it online unless I have SKUs that are available for this particular product. So this product is not complete because the SKUs is missing. Also, the description for print is also missing. So there's got to be some kind of a long description for print that it's missing. But in this case, it's good. So from a print perspective, the product is ready. So what I'm about to do is actually go physically into the product. You'll see it's got a little tag, and in inRiver, it's got different tags in here. As you can see, each of them represent a different entity in the system. So I open up this what we call a sofa, and this happens to be C001 sofa. It's just a number or a name was provided to that. And we call this the 360 view of a product. And there's a good reason we call it the 360 view, because it really tells you everything you want to know about the product. First of all, it gives you the digital asset associated with the product. Then it gives you some description about it. So whether it's your name, description, what type of industry it belongs to, what type of category it's on, it's a very good summary of what's happening with this product. The other thing that is extremely critical within knowing what the good PIM provides you is the ability to see where is this product used. So you can see, for example, this particular product is currently being sold through an e-com site. It's also part of some kind of a furniture sold through Amazon. And then it's also part of a print publications. Notice that there's some in some other site that is gray, meaning that it's not currently active, but it used to be sold in some other website, etc. So you have a good way of seeing where and how this product is being used. But in the same token, you can see also where this product is included in, meaning if I'm dealing with bundles and kits or things like that, you can actually see that this product is part of a living room or part of a care kit, or can even be part of some kind of notifications and tasks. So it's a good view of what's happening with the product. And finally, here at the bottom, you'll see that it also tells me all the variant of the product. So what color is it offered in, or what size? So if this product is being sold, in this case, is kind of variant by color, you can see that I have all of those images around it. And by the way, the reason it's 90% incomplete or complete is because an image is missing from one of those items. So it's not ready for web yet. So that's really what we call the 360 view. And what I'm about to do is give you a little bit more details on some of what things you can do. So I'll kind of walk you through some of the other features. How do you enrich the product? So this was a 360 view. And what I'm about to do is start going to a bit more of details. So first of all, in here, you can manage different product types. So depending on the different product, you can set up field sets. So you can distinguish between product and have completely different fields associated with them, just to make things easier. Notice in here, you can make fields required, not required. So if it's coming from your ERP, for example, maybe you want to make it also not editable, so people cannot edit the field. Now, a cool thing is, for example, if I select this button here, it will actually show you all the historical view of this particular product name. So if the name was changed from one to another, you can see who changed it, when it was changed, and in what language it was changed to, and also when it was modified and who modified it, and actually restored it back. So it's good audit trail and capability as well. And then if, for example, you want to deal with multiple languages, we also have this in multiple languages. So if you're selling it, let's say in a different region, you can either have manual translation, meaning somebody can come in here and physically translate this, or we do have some connection to translation.com as an example, or Lionbridge, where you can fire on a task right from inRiver, send it over to let's say translation.com. The translation gets done, and then physically bring the changes back right into inRiver. So you can also fully automate the process. And obviously, there are plenty of other fields. You can create any type of field, drop down, dates, integer, any of that things in here. One of the main things we can do to allow things for data integrity is really provide you solid data that is with a controlled vocabulary. So for example, if you keep an eye on the category and the subcategory, if I'm dealing with living room, I have very specific subcategories that dealing with living room. But if I'm switching, for example, to bedroom, you'll see that I now have a completely different sets of data. And that's for purpose. You want to make sure that people don't just randomly type things or put things that are incorrect. And we also allows you to be able to select and multi-select fields. So if, let's say, for example, you want to sell this product in multiple places, let's say the US and and Sweden, these are two countries you want to sell this product. So you have full control over it. And the final things I wanted to show when it comes to metadata or taxonomy is really status information. So for the purpose of what I have here prepared today, is a product may go through a life cycle. So as product comes in, maybe it's new, then it goes to under enrichment, then it goes through ready for the web, and then ready for print. So you can kind of control the life cycle of a product through what we call a status field. Obviously, every customer is going to have their own way of managing things, but this is just as an example. And also you can also have a flag that controls the entire product at the end that says it's approved or rejected or false, or so you have full control over just the life cycle, but also, maybe you want to publish it to your content store or something like that. Another concept that we have, in addition to just metadata and taxonomy, we have something called specifications. So specification really allows you to add a template. So if I'm selling, I don't really have anything specifically for a couch, but if I'm selling, for example, power tools, I can have a specification that is really specific only for the power tools. So if I'm dealing with weights, height, capacity, and all sorts of dimensions, I can start applying templates for every product I have. And then I have also something called media, and that's really your digital assets. So inRiver come with a full PIM behind it. So I can click on any one of those images, and I'll be able to see a larger preview of it. I can manage the metadata around this particular image, including the usage rights if you had to. You can download your original file, different version of the original file, and basically edit the metadata on the digital assets. So basically, full metadata capability, full digital asset capability, including videos, PDFs, and pretty much any type of media you want to manage. What I'm going to do now is take you to the Includes tab. This is really where the power of a true PIM can give you, is the ability to add variant and start relating product to each other. Notice in here in my Includes tab, I have three different items in here, but I can also have upsells and cross-sells. So if I come in here, for example, and I want to go ahead and now associate, let's take a simple example where I want to go into my living room, and here it says, great, this particular sofa, I just want to make this particular table an upsell. So from now on, or related to, as a matter of fact, I can just drag and say this particular carpet is now related to this particular product. So you have full control of managing your items, your products, your cross-sell, your upsells, and that's a true value of a PIM, to make all this complexity easy in here. So when you go to your website, that behavior is much easier to manage. So I'm going to take a quick pause. What kind of I walked you through is quickly we have the portal where the user can come in and start taking action in here. It really starts with the supply. Data come from your ERP system. SKU gets created. A user will go in through the enrichment process, adding digital assets, managing your taxonomy. And the next step in the process is really what we call the plan and release. And the plan and release is actually a critical point in the process, because now you have all this product, rules has been fired up, everything seems good, and now you want to start sharing these products in your different channels. So we have two types of channels. We have something called publications, which is really deals with print. I will not go into that today, but just like you can expose certain products to your online channels, you can do the same thing for your print catalog. And the channel in here, as you can see, is an example. I may sell this product on Amazon and an e-com site and another retail store. So each one of those channels really represent an assortment of product in a certain hierarchy that is expected by that receiving channel. So if, for example, I am going to this e-commerce site, you'll see that I have a taxonomy in here. And this taxonomy is completely independent of how it's been managed in the Enrich app. It is really how it's been managed on where it is, so where it's been sold. So if I'm sending it through an e-commerce site and they expect things to be on the living room, these are all the products that are now sold to that channel. Same thing for bathroom, same thing for kitchen. So the idea is that you can either drag and drop items from here to here. If I want to go ahead and just drag and drop product, I can. But what's more powerful is that I can actually configure a rule that says anytime I'm in the living room, for example, I have a category called living room. Any product that's ready to go, make sure it's in here. Yep, thank you. So as you can see in here, that's another way of doing things a lot faster instead of just doing a drag and drop. So truly, the plan and release is a place for you to map your products to every one of your channels. As you can see in here, I've got different channels that I'm currently selling my products through. And then the final step in the process is what we call publish. Now, on the publish side, again, it's really more of a one-time type functions and then maybe monitoring in the future. IT typically is responsible for that, where you can define the channels. Where's my data going to? If you're selling it through Magenta as your e-commerce site, or through Demandware as your CMS, or through Amazon, each one of them is going to have its own connector, and then the data will be created and managed to be able to deliver them to the data to the way that they're expecting them to receive it. Whether it's in an XML feed, maybe whether it's in a CSV feed, whether it's the web services API, there are different ways to talk to third-party system. So that's the publish. So at a high level, I got one more thing that I'd like to show you. At a high level, from an inRiver PIM perspective, data will come from your supply chain, move into the enrichment process, we plan and release, and then gets published. Now, once the data is out there and your products are out there, let's say as an example, since I'm not showing you how it's going to look live on your website or your CMS or your Amazon, we have a concept of a content store. And a content store is really, how do you share? It's a self-service way for you to share your content. Let's say if I'm a manufacturer of furniture and I want my dealer distributor network to be able to download my data and my products without having them send me emails and me sending them spreadsheets or sending through an FTP, I can set up a content store. So in my content store in here, I can create as many content stores I'd like. In my case, we have one already ready for furniture. I've already decided what product I want to expose to them, what fields I want to expose to them, what templates I want them to use. So this is a one-time job. You kind of set it up, and then the user can come in and start looking for product. So let me take you through what a typical content store looks like. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick login. And a couple of things I like to highlight. So first of all, when a user logs in, they're only going to see the things that you've exposed to them. And that's obviously through permission and all of that. So it's kind of fairly controlled of what people can see. And you can set up different content store for different users. On the left side is the navigation that you saw in the plan and release. So you can control also the navigation. So people can just navigate through what they want. They can just make it easy for search perspective. Then they navigate, they can click on it, see a preview of it, they can see what it looks like, read about the specific data, see all the digital assets associated with them. So get a quick preview of it. But at the end of the day, they really just want to download it and view it. So they can just add it to their carts, and then they're presented with two options. They can zip it. So if I click on zip, you'll see here down here, the system will create a zip file for it. But also I'll be able to create a catalog. And that's a new feature we just added where you can say, you can pick the language that you want to do the catalog in. You can pick a template. So let's say I'm doing a cover page. I also want to do, I have different options. In this case, I'm just going to do 4 product per page. It's a template that's already been set up for me. And then finally, I'm doing a back page. So the idea is instead of having an InDesign and an InDesign server or the need to know Adobe, you can create HTML templates behind the scene that will obviously create a high resolution PDF file for you on the fly. So if I create catalog in here, you'll see it's kind of working in here, building it for me. But let me just show you what it looks like while it's building, because it may take a few seconds. Should be on my download in here. So a few things you'll see. One of them is the folder that has the zip file. And you'll see in here it's got a CSV file. So this is all the data that came from the product. And you can decide what's been pushed. It's like an export of all your data. And then each product's got its own folder structure. So if you go, for example, this product, you'll be able to see all the digital assets and maybe anything associated with the file, with the data is there. And then from a print perspective, I can open up this print and you'll see what we just created. Let me make it a bit smaller. You'll see it's a high resolution print file that was created directly out inRiver, pretty much through automation. And you can decide, in my case, I had 3 items in here. I have the item number, the image, and the description. So all of that can be done by creating a pretty simple template through HTML setup. So what I'm going to do, it's about 2:40 right now. What I'm going to do is I think I'm going to turn it back for some Q&A and see where we go from here. So Chris, I'm turning it over back to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, David. That was great context for the earlier slides, just giving perspective on After talking about exactly why we should do it, also show here's how it could be done, and I think it was very effective. Let's go through a couple questions. The first one, I'm going to do a little paraphrasing. It says the quality of our product data is currently not ideal in several different systems. Are there any best practices for how to clean up these data issues?
So yeah, thanks, Chris. So data issue is typically one of the number one, when we go into implementation, it's the number one kind of like step that is the most difficult for customers because, junk in and junk out, as it's just the way it is. So you want to have a fairly solid strategy around your data. Obviously, you want to start bringing your data in correctly. So whether you go through a cleansing before it actually come to inRiver, you may be able to set up some rule in inRiver. So as you're doing your data migrations, for example, you may decide that if you've already set up the appropriate information, as data comes in from a data conversion point of view, you'll flag those and won't let RM in. So you obviously can work with your implementation partners to do that, and that's really what you want to do. You want to make sure that you maybe take a shot at your data before it comes to inRiver. If that's an activities you can do, that's one. And two, within inRiver itself, once you set up the rule that say, for example, I'm giving an example, when somebody, maybe you have a taxonomy, something called power tool. Well, you can spell power tool with an S at the end, power tools, or just power tool. Well, if your data is incorrect, or somebody doesn't put a space or with a space, if you set up inRiver once and you set up this taxonomy, always has to be power tools, any data that comes in is going to be rejected. So you have that control. So as you go into the implementation, set up the rule correctly of how you want it to be implemented, and then bad data is never going to come into inRiver, so you can move on. Hopefully that answers your question. It's just an example. There are a lot of different other strategies we can help you with.
Yeah, I think it hopefully did as well. There's a follow-on question that I didn't want you to have to remember. It says, can you talk, it's worded strange, so can you talk about if and how a PIM keeps these data problems under control after implementation? So essentially, how do we maintain that data going forward so it doesn't happen again?
Okay, so once you've created that, that's a good question. So once you've created this and now you have a solid taxonomy, we provide you with, obviously within inRiver, a modeling tool. And that modeling tool is meant for business users. You can log in there, you can see what, let's say you're managing SKUs, and the SKUs needs to have a certain amount of product information. As long as you try to keep most of your data with pre-built taxonomy and minimize people's need to type in text. Obviously, you have to type in text when you have product description and things like that. You can control that. But anything else would really be driven by a core taxonomy or categories, so that way people can just put in randomly what they want. And that's kind of like one way to do it. So you want to have a solid back-end taxonomy to allow you to do it. And it's controlled by the business, not by IT. It's very important to kind of distinguish that.
Give the control to the marketers that are actually going to be
Yeah.
putting in data. Absolutely. All right. Next one is there a rule of thumb for a size of company that should be thinking about a PIM? Is that at some point, is there somebody that would naturally be leading this direction?
So it's thanks, Chris. It's kind of with this type of questions. It's kind of difficult to say from a company. I mean, company size. It's obviously you can there are different levels. Small, medium, large. We fit well in the medium to large type customers, but really you deal with a lot of those customers. They'll have number of SKUs, and a lot of the time the number of SKUs. We get questions, for example, should if I only have 1,000 SKUs, do I really need a PIM? The problem is not the number of SKUs, it's the complexity of the product and the product relationship. So for example, maybe you only have 1,000 SKUs, but every SKU you may have multiple variants in relationship to other products. So all of a sudden you end up with hundreds of thousands of kind of product and product relationships, and that's where you need it. So at the end of the day, pretty much if you've got anywhere from 1,000, 5,000 and above number of SKUs, you're probably a good qualified for a good PIM.
Right, and not necessarily even manufacturing, because I saw some case studies out there that were things like travel companies that have ridiculously complex individual products, and they need to be able to control all that as well. So that
Correct.
makes sense. So the next one is about the length of time. How long does a typical PIM implementation take?
So that's we get that questions a lot, and that's kind of there's no rule of thumb, but typically a small implementation can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. That's typically between you get all your data, your analysis in place, your data in place, again, your conversion of all your data, going through testing, all of that. So you need solid, I mean, just installing an inRiver PIM can take a few hours, but it's really around making sure that what you've built is ready for you to go prime time or go live. So I would say a small implementation takes about 4 weeks. Then you get about what we call medium-sized implementation. Maybe this kind of like 6 to 8 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, but you're getting to maybe more complexity, more integration required. Maybe you're dealing with more than one channel, more than one language, so you can start ramping up. And then we have what we call the kind of like the large 3 to 6 months, and that's when you start having a pretty, when we are in the middle of a pretty big um, deployment where you have web content management and ERP implementation, maybe translation. So then you start going into a much larger implementation. Somewhere around 3 to 6 months will be a good
Right.
size implementation.
All right. Well, fantastic. That sounds like a pretty good answer. Um, so the follow-on to that would be, what are the first steps that somebody would need to go through to be able to evaluate whether they're ready, essentially?
You mean, can you clarify that when you say ready?
Yeah, I'm trying to interpret the question and sort of put it in paraphrase it, but essentially it almost looks like, what are the first steps that somebody would need to do to evaluate whether they're ready for a PIM? So
Oh, if they're ready,
yeah,
if they're ready for a PIM. Okay. So I think what we've noticed, I don't know if you remember in one of the slides earlier, what we've noticed is when we get called, it's usually, I don't want to say it's too late, but it's usually the customer is already invoked in a some type of web content management or some other big ERP initiative. So they go out there and then they realize, wait a minute, we don't really have a centralized place for all our data. So there's no such thing as, you need to be ready for PIM. It's really knowing where your products, what do you want to sell, how do you want to sell them through, what are your channels. Once you have that in place, then a PIM is just your vehicle for getting all this stuff centralized. We can help you. I mean, us and the partners network we have obviously can help you with all of that. But I'm not sure that there is like a bullet that says, hey, now I'm ready for a PIM. You just need to know where your data is, understand your data, and know how you're selling it, and then everything else will come through the analysis and design phase of an implementation. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's what the person was asking.
yeah, it almost sounds like a how long is a piece of string kind of question. Um, it's a difficult to answer without having more context is what it comes down to. So the last one I have here right now is, I've heard of a master data management software. What's the difference between PIM and master data management?
That's a great question. So again, I don't know if there's a way to go back to the slides, but I had a slide that said a paradigm shift, and that slide kind of showed kind of like a database where you kind of centralize your data. And I made a comment that says you don't want just another database. So the way we look at the world is an MDM can probably solve a lot of your problems. You can put all your content and all of that in there. You'll have a centralized place for everything, but very difficult to manage if you don't have a true PIM where you can manage your digital assets, your relationships, your cross-sell, your upsell, making it the enrichment process a lot easier. Uh, yeah, thank you. You can keep going. It's at the closer to the beginning.
Oh, okay.
It's got a little
Is it
database. Yeah,
this
that one right there.
Okay,
One
good.
more. One
Oh,
more.
that guy.
Yeah. Yes, that will do. So if you kind of look at your right side, an MDM will give you a centralized database for that. But if you don't mind, there's another slide that has a central database in it.
Okay.
I think it's either up or down too.
Something.
Down, right there.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So what we could do for you is the central database is not just, and again, just aggregating data from different sources, is giving you that enrichment process here, as opposed to just having your data, the enrichment, the campaign management, the product launches, and then obviously the mapping to your channel, the plan and release, very critical in the true PIM. So I believe that's really where we kind of different than a traditional MDM.
Right, and it sounds like there's a lot of components of MDM that are included in the PIM. It just goes beyond that from that perspective.
Correct.
Well, that's great. Okay, well, I think that's all the questions we had. So I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Thank you, David, for showing up and providing with this great presentation. And we'll make sure that everybody gets an email with a copy of the webinar recording as well as the slides so that you can review it in the future and share it if you choose to do so. So thanks and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.